John Fredericks Radio Network. Joining us now, Alfredo Ortiz. He is the president and CEO of the Job Creators Network. Alfredo, great to have you.
John, good morning. Great to be on the show. Thank you very much.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Alfredo.
It's going to be a great 2019, that's for sure.
We are going to have one, assuming you can rein in this Fed. Now, look, I understand that Jerome Powell had to get rid of quantitative easing. That is not a long-term plan, all right? And Janet Yellen did that, or Alfredo, because we had anemic 0.5% growth, and she was petrified even the tiniest interest rate would cause another recession. So we clamped it down artificially. And I get it that it's got to come up a little bit in order to get back into equilibrium. But it's almost like Jerome Powell wants to tank the Trump economy now. Tell me I'm wrong.
Well, John, it's funny that you said that because, in 2015, the Fed chair at the time had started taking rate increases then and promised 3 or 4 increases for 2016. And lo and behold, none of them materialized really. Interestingly enough, just in time for the election, right? And now that Trump's in place, the rates just keep going up and up and up. And as we have been saying that they got to stop because it's just basically like what we've said is they're not only pumping their foot on the brake, but they're pulling the parking brake at the same time because there's two things going on here, John. Right? It's not only the Fed rate increase, but it's also the unwinding of that bond portfolio, $4 trillion. It's like on autopilot, $50 billion per month, just on autopilot. So when you combine that with the rate increases, it's really going to start slowing down the economy. And that's what we're seeing. And we can track this, the route in the market all the way back to that October 3rd press conference that Powell had.
So the president has complained bitterly. He's even floated the idea of firing the Fed chief, Jerome Powell, which I don't think he can do. But, I mean, he's frustrated, right? Because he hired the guy, right? He gave the guy the position. What to do? How do you solve this?
Well, and you're right. I mean, I don't think there is, the reality of firing Powell is really there. He was recommended by Mnuchin, which is probably why Mnuchin felt kind of the need to try to correct some of the route the economy was seeing and the market. But we do need to see this repeal of the rates. We need to see a slowdown, if not a complete stop of these rate increases. Allow the bond portfolio, allow the quantitative tightening now, which is what's happening. Allow that to continue, but stop with the rate increases. And in fact, we would like for him to reverse course and announce almost immediately that they're actually going to take the rate back down by 1/4 point. I think that would actually send the right signal, not that we're going to a recession, but that he just overdid it.
I mean, look, I don't think they're going to take it down, right? Because that would basically make Jerome Powell have to admit that he was very mistaken in this whole thing. So I don't see that happening. I don't think they're going to take it down. So if he just didn't raise it again, Alfredo, what kind of a difference would that make? Because now they're talking about raising it again in Q1.
Well, I mean, to an extent, we feel like we've already won some kind of a victory because, again, for the past 2.5, 3 months, we've been out there. Steve Moore and we wrote an opinion editorial just last week on this. That if you remember originally, just a couple months ago, Powell had indicated they would take 3 or 4 rate increases in 2019. Right now, that's gone down to maybe 2, and really the market's really indicating now that there may be just 1 rate increase at the beginning of the first quarter, and that's it for 2019. So we're slowing them down. And I actually think the idea of a complete stop at this point and that we see no rate increase in 2019 is going to be a probability here because the market is responding. Obviously, we've lost almost $4 trillion in wealth since that October 3rd press conference. And I think Jerome Powell is going to be finding it hard-pressed to continue to defend himself and because the data is just not there to support it. If you look at commodities, for example, John, they're down 12%. And when you look at oil and copper and all the commodities, farm prices, I mean, these are down 12% for the year. It's, the inflation is well within check. And frankly, a little bit of inflation is actually good for the economy. Mm-hmm. When you see a little bit of price increases and increases, it helps revenues overall for companies, which means it helps them to reinvest back in wages. We're seeing wage increase, for example, John, increase the most we've seen in a long time, over 3%. And in fact, these non-supervisory wage increases are going up faster than the supervisory ones, which is a great thing. The blue-collar worker wage increases are going up faster than the white-collar. That's a great thing. It's good to see a little bit of inflation in the economy. It's well within check. He did his job. To make sure that the economy didn't overheat, but we just think that he went way too far. And again, even though it doesn't look like he'll take a rate decrease because he'd have to admit it, we sure would like for him to be a big boy here and actually admit that he made a mistake.
And put your big boy pants on. We're with Alfredo Ortiz. He's president and CEO of the Job Creators Network. Hey, just so that I know, Alfredo, if people want more information, where do they go?
Yeah, thank you, John. They go to jobcreatorsnetwork.com. That's jobcreatorsnetwork.com. Again, Job Creators Network was founded by Bernie Marcus, who is one of our most incredible American dream stories entrepreneurs. He was hired at 48 and then started at the Home Depot at 52 and today employs over 400,000 people. And he just fundamentally, he's 88 years old, and every single day he wakes up, he just believes in America, he believes in our country, and doing the right thing, especially for our small business owners, which, as you know, is small business owners across the country are the backbone of our economy.
Right.
Over 70% of jobs are in their hands, and it's just so critical that our small business owners have these wonderful regulations and lower tax environment that the Trump administration put forth, that continues to thrive. And again, that's why we need the Fed to stop.
What do we do? What would be your advice, Alfredo Ortiz, to the president on the wall and the shutdown?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think the focus that the president shifted, this is not about immigration, really. This is about the flow of illegal drugs and opioids coming through the border, human trafficking, gun trafficking. These are real issues. Of course, it's the immigration issue also. But, we cannot discount how much of an issue this is related to those other three elements that I mentioned: drug trafficking, human trafficking, and overall gun trafficking. It's horrible what's happening coming across the border. And so we have to have security at the border. And I think, frankly, I know that Trump has come down from his $5 billion request. I think it's now down to $2.1 billion, if I recall correctly, John.
Yes.
They had offered 1.6. I mean, come on, we're $500 million difference. This could be resolved in a millisecond. When you have a $4 trillion federal budget, this could be done easily. This is obviously grandstanding that's happening from the Democrats. This can be resolved. We can move forward, give the funding that we need to do to make sure that we've got the proper border security down at the wall and get the shutdown over with.
It's a joke when you look at we have a $4 trillion budget. Even if you take the $5 billion the president is asking for a border wall funding, it's 1/8 of 1% of the entire federal budget. Is so stupid, it's beyond the pale. But it's just what the Democrats do. Now, Alfredo Ortiz, President CEO of Job Creators Network. More information, go to jobcreatorsnetwork.com. Alfredo, I'm going to ask you this question, and I know you're going to give me an honest answer. And here it is. Do you think that Jerome Powell is raising interest rates because he truly believes this is the right thing to do for this economy to get it up to not overheating or whatever he's trying to do? Or do you believe this is part of the deep state plan to tank the Trump economy and jeopardize his chances for re-election in 2020?
Well, it's a great question. I mean, because the data, John, just did not, back him up. The data was not there. I think the one thing that folks admire a lot about Trump is, his, doggedness about a particular issue. And I think he was right on this particular issue of telling the Fed that they just have to stop before they hurt the economy. And I think, This was literally Powell just basically saying, look, I'm going to show that I'm independent from the president, and I'm going to raise rates regardless. And I think by doing that, frankly, and, he claimed to be, I don't want to be political about this. I think he exactly became political by taking that rate increase. The data did not justify in any way, shape, or form for him to take that rate increase. Yet he did it. So all I can say is that probably was a political move, whether it was because he doesn't like Trump or just because he wanted to show he's, the man in charge of the Fed. I'm not quite sure. But the data did not justify for him to take that rate increase.
That's the question that many of us have. And it's one that you have to ask. And it's, what's amazing, Alfredo, that you and I are on the air on a nationally syndicated radio talk show host actually talking about and discussing the possibility of the chairman of the Federal Reserve tanking the economy to hurt average, everyday American people in order to get rid of this president and ensure he's not reelected. I mean, even the fact that we're having a legitimate conversation about that. I mean, isn't that bizarre? I mean, who would have ever thought you could even have this dialogue? But I don't know, And as
John, it's disappointing, right? Because again, the Fed, we were hopeful that this new Fed chair was going to be doing the right thing and truly look at data. And he even said that that's what he was going to be doing, is data-driven. I just don't see it happening. I just don't see him looking at the data, and I just don't understand why. I mean, this is hurting average Americans day in and day out now in terms of higher car rates, right, for their car loans, mortgage rates, credit cards. This slows down the economy. Small business, right, when they take out those loans for their to fund their businesses, it's affecting the entire economy. And why? There is absolutely no reason that Powell should have taken that rate increase other than to show that he's in control of the Fed and not the president. And so by doing that, he wanted so badly not to show that he was political that he actually showed that he is very political.
I think it's the exact opposite. And, you have to question this and question the motivation. And, you get back to Janet Yellen's reign. And I was a supporter of Yellen because I thought she did the right thing, Alfredo. There was no evidence that supported a rate increase when your economy is growing at 0.5%. None, right? So Yellen, right, I thought, did the right thing. But also she was criticized for keeping rates artificially low during the 2016 campaign, not to jeopardize the Obama Clinton coalition, whatever it was. Now we're getting the exact opposite. And, the thing is, Alfredo, so much goes on there in D.C., as you know, and there's so much nonsense that goes on that you're suspect of everything. I mean, for a simple thing like the president trying to pull out of a war we have no business being in, and the entire deep state going absolutely bananas over it, where now you've got, Alfredo, Democrats, progressives, who were opposed to even our involvement in Syria, now arguing we should stay in simply because Trump is trying to fulfill a campaign promise. Don't you find that odd?
Oh, yeah. I find a lot of things in D.C. odd. I mean, how all of a sudden, the Democrats find religion in, debt and deficits, I think is pretty hysterical overall, too.
It's just bizarre. John Fredericks, a radio network. Okay, so let's get to the Trump economy. Let's get to tax cuts. I've got just two more minutes. I've been saying for some time that you're not going to really feel the impact of the economic surge of the tax cuts until February, March, April, when people actually start seeing the money they're getting back. A lot of people are saying now that it just isn't going to materialize. What say you?
Oh, John, you're absolutely right. I mean, we are going to make sure that people understand and realize the benefit of the tax cut. That was one of the reasons we actually last year, when Newt Gingrich and I were really fighting for in 2017, we were really looking for this to be retroactive because we wanted people to see the benefits of it in 2018. The full benefits, really, because it wasn't retroactive, they're going to start seeing it in 2019. When they start filing their income tax returns and start seeing those refund checks coming back and start seeing the benefit of everything that was in place in the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, people are really going to start seeing that benefit, and small business owners as well, because you know what, John? A lot of them actually did hold back because there wasn't much clarity in the actual rulemaking part of that until the Treasury came back with some of those, and that was not till the fall of this year. And so I think small businesses are going to start really investing heavily in realizing the benefits of that starting in 2019. So actually, I think it's going to be that's why I'm saying it's going to be a great year. And I think the first quarter, we're going to start seeing these investments really starting to come up. And as you correctly pointed out, I think people overall are going to start seeing that hardworking Americans are going to start seeing that benefit in terms of what they're seeing on those tax returns.
Alfredo Ortiz, President, CEO of Job Creators Network. By the way, Job Creators Network, the number one organization in America that stood behind and advocated for the president's tax cut plan. They did a better job than anybody. And
Thanks, John.
You guys have turned this organization into just a national powerhouse, and I'm proud to be associated with it. JobCreatorsNetwork.com. More information. Alfredo Ortiz, President, CEO. Curtis Ellis coming up. Keep it right here.